It's crunch time again for Greece. Eurozone finance ministers are meeting in Brussels to assess whether the country has met its obligations under the biggest bailout in history. Since 2010, Greece has received more than $250 billion in two international bailouts.
Dominating the skyline here in Athens, Greece's cultural jewel, the Acropolis, somehow symbolising the current need of the country itself, with massive cranes towering above it for structural support.
Wall Street opening lower today after the vote in Greece rejecting conditions for a financial bailout. Overnight, the country's finance minister resigned. Residents in Astoria, one of the largest Greek communities in the country, have been closely following the developments.
Much anxiety amongst Greeks right now. They want to see a firm resolve from Europe. They want to see a plan that's mapped out in the right way for the whole of Europe, and indeed this colossal debt restructuring exercise that has to go on with this country.
Maybe it is the political reasons, but I don't know what. I'm not so. I really am not interested in the hypothesis why this is happening. I know what is happening, and this is really hard.
Greece has undertaken a burden that is disproportionate. What can Europe do precisely to help Greece?
Tourists still see sunsets over Santorini and plates of fresh seafood by the sea, but what they don't see are eviction notices, skyrocketing bills, and locals working two jobs just to scrape by. In 2025, the dream of living in Greece is cracking fast. For residents, life isn't golden beaches, it's stress, survival, and so many broken promises. This is the Greece no travel guide will ever show you. Greece sells itself as a dreamscape. Santorini's white houses glowing in the sunset, Athens' Acropolis lit at night, the Aegean's islands scattered like jewels across blue seas. For visitors, it can feel like stepping into paradise. But that paradise is a carefully curated illusion. Tourists see beaches, ruins, and tavernas, but not the cracks underneath. They don't face the endless bureaucracy, the soaring bills, the uncertainty of finding steady work, or the failing public services that locals live with daily. For residents, the postcard fades quickly. Living here means confronting realities that visitors rarely imagine. And perhaps the most pressing reality in 2025, the crushing cost of simply trying to exist in Greece. Ask any Greek what weighs heaviest on their mind, and the answer comes quickly: the cost of living. Wages have barely shifted in years, yet prices have surged far ahead. Rent in Athens and Thessaloniki has skyrocketed, partly fueled by Airbnb converting once affordable neighborhoods into tourist playgrounds. In some central districts, rents have risen by 35 to 50% since 2019. Many young Greeks now remain with their parents into their 30s, not out of choice, but out of necessity. Groceries tell the same story. Olive oil, that was once a symbol of Greece's abundance, has doubled in price in just 3 years, often selling at 8 to 10 euros per liter. Basic necessities, bread, dairy, and fresh vegetables have spiked too. Even traditional family meals now feel like a luxury. Electricity and fuel remain high despite EU subsidies, leaving families forced to choose between heating, food, or paying rent. Inflation has slowed compared to the pandemic years, but the damage lingers in everyday life. And while bills keep climbing, wages remain painfully low, feeding another crisis, the broken job market. Despite endless promises of reform, Greece still struggles with unemployment and underemployment. The average monthly salary sits around 1,100 to 1,300 euros before tax, barely enough to survive in major cities. Many jobs are seasonal, tied to tourism, or based on short-term contracts with no stability. Even for young graduates, the future looks bleak. Thousands continue to leave Greece each year, joining the brain drain that has hollowed out the country since the debt crisis of the 2010s. Germany, the UK, and Northern Europe have absorbed tens of thousands of skilled Greeks who see no viable path at home. This exodus drains the economy further, creating a vicious cycle: fewer young professionals, slower growth, and shrinking opportunities for those left behind. And for those who stay, even securing an affordable home has become one of the toughest battles of all.
Thousands of refugees in Greece are living in housing provided by the government. But now, having been granted asylum, they're being forced to find new accommodation to make room for other asylum seekers. Giannis Giannias tells us more.
This block of apartments near the port of Piraeus is a temporary home for some of the thousands of refugees that already have been recognized as refugees by the Greek authorities.
By 2025, housing in Greece has reached a breaking point. Short-term rentals dominate Athens, Thessaloniki, and even smaller towns, pushing locals out of their own neighborhoods. For families, rent now consumes 40 to 55% of monthly income, far above the sustainable threshold. For many young people, home ownership feels impossible. Mortgages remain out of reach, and property prices are inflated by wealthy foreign buyers snapping up Greek real estate as investment portfolios. Entire neighborhoods have transformed into tourist-only zones. Athenians who once lived in districts like Koukaki or Exarchia year-round can no longer afford to return. The capital increasingly feels unlivable for ordinary workers. And while people struggle to afford shelter, another force is making daily life even more unbearable: the climate crisis. Greece is on the front line of climate change. Summers are longer, hotter, and deadlier. In recent years, heat waves of 45 to 47 degrees Celsius have become disturbingly common, turning cities into ovens and pushing hospitals to the brink. Outdoor workers simply cannot labor safely in such conditions. Even worse, wildfires now devastate the countryside every summer. Tens of thousands of hectares burn annually. Forests, olive groves, vineyards, even villages. Homes are destroyed, livelihoods erased, and entire communities evacuated. The smell of smoke has become a grim marker of summer. Water shortages deepen the stress. Islands like Santorini and Aegina face reservoirs running dry during peak tourist season, when populations can triple. A land once celebrated for its natural abundance now feels parched and fragile. And as nature grows harsher, Greece's healthcare system, already weakened, struggles to keep pace. Greek healthcare has never fully recovered from the austerity cuts of the 2010s. Public hospitals remain understaffed and underfunded. Waiting times can stretch for months, and many facilities lack modern equipment. Doctors and nurses continue to emigrate for better pay abroad, leaving gaps at home that are impossible to fill. Families often turn to private care for faster service, but at crushing financial cost. For ordinary Greeks, healthcare feels less like a right and more like a gamble that waits endlessly in the public system or goes into debt for private treatment. And when people look to politics for answers, they often find only disappointment. Politics in Greece often feels like a carousel of promises and letdowns. Corruption scandals, inefficiency, and suffocating bureaucracy fuel cynicism among citizens. Registering property, starting a business, or simply renewing paperwork can take weeks or months, often requiring bribes or connections to move things along. Trust in institutions remains fragile, and voter turnout has slid as people lose faith in leaders delivering real change. For many Greeks, politics is just background noise, loud, chaotic, and irrelevant to daily survival. Meanwhile, the one sector that keeps booming, tourism, brings its own double-edged consequences. Tourism is Greece's lifeline, making up around 20 to 25% of GDP. Millions of visitors pour into the islands and cities each year, creating jobs and income. But while it fuels the economy, it also squeezes locals. On Santorini and Mykonos, life for residents during peak season is unbearable. Streets choke with crowds, groceries and fuel become overpriced, and hospitals often prioritize tourists who bring in foreign money. Even buses and ferries are packed to the point where locals can't use them. The irony is bitter. The very industry that sustains Greece also makes daily life increasingly unlivable for those who remain. Put all these pieces together and you see what everyday life in Greece truly feels like in 2025. For many Greeks, life in 2025 is constant compromise. Parents juggle 2 or 3 part-time jobs just to cover rent. Young adults postpone marriage and children because independence is out of reach. Retirees stretch shrinking pensions, rationing every euro to make it through the month. Yes, there definitely are moments of joy, like those family dinners by the sea, summer festivals, or evenings in the village square. But these moments are fleeting, overshadowed by economic anxiety, climate fears, and political fatigue. The harsh truth is that Greece may still dazzle visitors, but for residents, it's a grind of survival beneath the picture-perfect surface. And this reality doesn't just matter for Greece, it's a warning sign for Europe. Greece is not alone in facing these pressures. Spain, Italy, and Portugal are beginning to feel the same: housing shortages from tourism, soaring costs of living, climate-driven disasters, and aging populations. Greece stands as a test case for Southern Europe. If it cannot balance tourism, sustainability, and social well-being, others may tumble down the same path. What unfolds here today offers a glimpse of the Mediterranean's tomorrow, which leads to the final question: what future remains for Greece itself? Greece still dazzles the world with its postcard charm, but that's only half the story. For locals, life in 2025 is not a carefree dream, but a daily battle against rising costs, unstable jobs, and relentless pressures that tourists rarely notice. The harsh truth is this: Greece is paradise to outsiders, but for its people, it's a place of sacrifice, resilience, and survival. If this revealed a side you never knew, like and subscribe for more hidden realities across the globe. You'll never see places the same. Thanks for watching.